Hey car lovers! The 1940s were a time of transition for the automotive world. World War II halted production for several years, and when manufacturers finally got back to making cars, some ideas didn't exactly hit the mark. While many cars of the era are considered classics today, there were some major flops too. Today we're diving into 10 of the dumbest and worst cars of the 1940s that you won't believe actually existed. Let's get started. The Crosley CC, introduced in 1946, was one of America's first post-war compact cars, designed to bring affordable and economical transportation to the masses. Produced by the Crosley Corporation, led by industrialist Powell Crosley Jr., the car was an attempt to offer a solution for an American market hungry for inexpensive vehicles following World War II. At a time when most American cars were large and gas-thirsty, the Crosley CC presented a stark contrast with its diminutive size, lightweight frame, and low price tag. However, despite its ambitious vision, the Crosley CC quickly revealed its many shortcomings, from its severely underpowered engine to its lackluster build quality, ultimately consigning it to the annals of automotive history as a well-intentioned but deeply flawed vehicle. The Crosley CC's most glaring issue was its engine. Powered by a tiny 724 cubic centimeter, 26 horsepower engine, the car struggled to meet the basic demands of daily driving. While the engine size may have seemed adequate for city commuting or short trips, it was woefully underpowered for longer distances or highway travel, which was becoming increasingly common in post-war America. With such a small engine, the CC could barely keep up with traffic, particularly as the nation's roadways expanded and speed limits increased. Acceleration was sluggish at best, and the car often topped out at around 50 miles per hour, making it impractical for any journey beyond local errands. This severely limited the car's appeal to consumers who needed a vehicle that could handle a wider range of driving conditions. The engine itself was not only underpowered, but also unreliable. Crosley initially used a unique Cobra engine made from stamped sheet metal and brazed together, which was prone to overheating and warping. Although the company later switched to a more conventional cast iron engine, the early reputation for engine trouble stuck, causing potential buyers to shy away from the brand. Crosley's attempts to innovate with lightweight materials backfired, as the durability of the engine was often questioned, leading to breakdowns and costly repairs for many owners. Beyond its engine woes, the Crosley CC also suffered from subpar build quality. The car's lightweight construction, while helping to keep costs low, also made it feel flimsy and insubstantial. The body panels were thin, and the overall fit and finish of the vehicle left much to be desired. Compared to the robust and solidly built cars offered by larger American manufacturers like Ford and Chevrolet, the Crosley felt more like a toy than a serious automobile. The small, boxy design of the car didn't inspire confidence, and buyers were often put off by the lack of features and comforts that were becoming more standard in the industry. The car's basic interior and minimal amenities reflected its budget-friendly price, but this only added to the sense that the Crosley CC was more about cutting corners than delivering quality. In terms of safety, the Crosley CC also lagged behind its competitors. The car's small size and lightweight frame made it particularly vulnerable in collisions, and it offered little in the way of modern safety features. Seat belts were not yet standard in most cars of the era, and the CC's compact dimensions meant that it lacked the structural integrity to provide much protection in the event of an accident. This, combined with its limited power and questionable reliability, made the Crosley CC a risky proposition for buyers looking for a dependable, long-term vehicle. Despite these significant drawbacks, the Crosley CC did have its share of advantages. Its low cost was perhaps its greatest selling point, making it accessible to a wide range of consumers who otherwise might not have been able to afford a new car. In the post-war years, the idea of an economical vehicle was appealing to many families, especially those in urban areas where space was limited and fuel prices were a concern. The Crosley CC also had some early successes in motorsports, particularly in small-scale racing events, where its lightweight build and nimble handling were seen as assets. These racing successes, however, did little to counterbalance the car's broader problems in the consumer market. The Willies Jeepster, introduced in 1948, was an ambitious but ultimately flawed attempt by Willies Overland to bridge the gap between rugged utility vehicles and comfortable passenger cars. After the success of the wartime Jeep, Willies hoped to capitalize on the Jeep's strong brand identity and apply it to a civilian market, particularly those seeking a stylish yet capable vehicle for everyday use. The Jeepster was designed to blend the Jeep's rough and ready DNA with the amenities and appeal of a family car. However, in trying to serve two very different markets, off-road enthusiasts and traditional car buyers, it ended up falling short in both categories. The concept behind the Willies Jeepster was intriguing. Willies Overland wanted to create a vehicle that would maintain the iconic Jeep look and rugged reputation, while offering a more refined, comfortable driving experience. Styled by industrial designer Brooks Stevens, the Jeepster had a distinctive and somewhat eye-catching design that featured a sporty open-top look. Its exposed fenders, 7-slot grille, and two-tone paint options gave it a unique aesthetic that stood out from other vehicles of the era. The Jeepster seemed like it would appeal to post-war drivers who wanted something a bit different, an adventurous crossover that could handle urban streets as well as dirt roads. However, while the design was visually appealing to some, the Jeepster quickly revealed its limitations. The vehicle was powered by a 2.2-liter Go Devil inline-4 engine that produced just 63 horsepower. This engine had been dependable in military Jeeps, but in the context of a civilian vehicle meant for daily driving, it felt woefully underpowered. With a 3-speed manual transmission and rear-wheel drive, the Jeepster lacked the kind of performance one would expect from a Jeep. Off-road enthusiasts, who were used to the Jeep's legendary 4-wheel drive capabilities, were disappointed to find that the Jeepster didn't come equipped with 4-wheel drive. This immediately alienated Jeep's traditional customer base, who relied on the brand for its off-road prowess. Without the ability to tackle rugged terrain, the Jeepster was little more than a stylish but underwhelming vehicle for paved roads. For car buyers more interested in comfort and practicality, the Jeepster had other issues that made it less than desirable. The open-top design, while attractive in theory, proved impractical for everyday use. Without proper weather protection, the vehicle wasn't well suited for year-round driving, especially in areas with harsh winters or rainy climates. Though a canvas top was available, it didn't fully insulate the cabin from the elements, making the Jeepster less appealing as a daily driver. Inside, the vehicle was Spartan and lacked the amenities and comfort features that car buyers in the late 1940s and early 1950s were beginning to expect. The cabin had minimal sound insulation, basic seats, and few advanced features, creating a driving experience that was more akin to that of a utility vehicle than a passenger car. Willies also struggled with the Jeepster's pricing and marketing strategy. Positioned at the higher end of the market, the Jeepster was priced similarly to other mid-sized sedans that offered far more in terms of power, comfort, and technology. Consumers looking for a family car or commuter vehicle were likely to choose more conventional sedans from Ford, Chevrolet, or Plymouth, which offered more refinement and better performance for the same price. On the other hand, those interested in rugged outdoor adventure vehicles found themselves disappointed with the Jeepster's lack of off-road capability and low power output. The Jeepster fell into an awkward middle ground. It wasn't rugged enough for off-road enthusiasts, but it wasn't refined enough for traditional car buyers. The Jeepster also suffered from being released at a time when consumer tastes were shifting. In the post-war years, American car buyers were gravitating toward larger, more luxurious vehicles. The minimalist, somewhat utilitarian design of the Jeepster didn't match up with the booming demand for stylish, powerful cars that could offer both comfort and prestige. Consumers wanted vehicles that reflected the optimism and prosperity of the late 1940s and early 1950s, and the Jeepster's throwback design and basic features simply couldn't compete. Despite these challenges, the Jeepster wasn't without its fans. Some drivers appreciated its quirky convertible design and enjoyed its nostalgic connection to the wartime Jeep. It was seen as a fun, casual car for beachgoers and those who enjoyed cruising around town with the top down. But this niche appeal wasn't enough to drive significant sales. By 1950, just 2 years after its introduction, Willies Overland ceased production of the Jeepster due to poor sales. The Chevrolet Fleetline Aeros sedan, introduced in 1942 and revived after World War II, was Chevrolet's attempt at blending sleek, futuristic design with the reliable, accessible engineering for which the brand was known. Positioned as part of Chevy's higher-end Fleetline series, the Aeros sedan sported a unique fastback design that stood out in an era when most cars were adopting more traditional, boxier shapes. With its smooth, sweeping roofline and rounded contours, the Aeros sedan was meant to evoke a sense of speed and modernity, capitalizing on the growing popularity of streamlined automotive aesthetics. Despite its bold design, however, the Fleetline Aeros sedan failed to resonate with the broader public, eventually becoming more of a curiosity than a style icon for Chevrolet. At first glance, the Chevrolet Fleetline Aeros sedan was a striking vehicle. Its fastback design, which featured a roofline that sloped gently down to the rear bumper, was a significant departure from the more conventional sedans of the era. Chevrolet sought to give the car a sporty, futuristic appearance, influenced by the aviation-inspired designs that were becoming fashionable in the late 1930s and 1940s. The smooth, aerodynamic look was intended to convey a sense of speed, even when the car was standing still. The goal was to capture the imagination of buyers who were excited about the idea of modernity and progress in post-war America. However, while the design was certainly eye-catching, it didn't appeal to everyone. The Aeros sedan's rounded, bulbous shape gave the car a somewhat bloated appearance, especially when compared to the more angular and balanced designs of its contemporaries. The fastback style, while sleek, sacrificed practicality in favor of aesthetics. The sloping rear roofline severely limited trunk space, making the car less functional for families or anyone needing extra cargo capacity. This was a significant drawback at a time when practicality was still a major concern for many car buyers, especially in the years following World War II, when economic recovery and practicality were top of mind for most Americans. Moreover, the Aeros sedan's unusual proportions didn't align with the prevailing automotive tastes of the late 1940s. Buyers were gravitating towards cars with more traditional styling, featuring upright grilles and squared-off rear ends. Chevrolet's bold experiment with the Aeros sedan's fastback design was too radical for the broader market, which preferred more familiar and conservative shapes. The public perception of beauty in automotive design during the era leaned heavily toward cars that conveyed solidity and stature, qualities that the Aeros sedan's sleek, curvaceous lines did not evoke. Despite its divisive appearance, the Chevrolet Fleetline Aeros sedan shared much of its mechanical underpinnings with other models in the Chevrolet lineup. Under the hood, the car was powered by Chevrolet's reliable Blue Flame inline-six engine, which produced 90 horsepower. This engine, while dependable, wasn't particularly powerful, and its performance didn't live up to the sporty image that the Aeros sedan's fastback design tried to project. It was essentially the same engine found in other Chevrolet sedans of the time, which reinforced the sense that the Aeros sedan was more of a styling exercise than a true performance-oriented vehicle. The Aeros sedan also offered many of the same features as other Chevrolet models of the time, including a manual transmission, hydraulic brakes, and a relatively simple no-frills interior. It was a comfortable and reliable car in most respects, but it didn't offer anything groundbreaking in terms of performance, handling, or technology. This, combined with its polarizing design, left the Aeros sedan without a clear niche in the market. Buyers who were drawn to Chevrolet for its reputation of building dependable, affordable cars didn't see enough value in the Aeros sedan's unusual design to justify choosing it over more practical models like the Chevrolet Styleline or Deluxe. Chevrolet's hopes for the Aeros sedan as a style leader were further dampened by the post-war economic conditions. After World War II, there was an immense pent-up demand for cars, as auto production had been halted during the war years to support the war effort. When production resumed, buyers were eager to purchase whatever was available, often opting for cars based on necessity rather than design flair. While Chevrolet managed to sell a significant number of Aeros sedans in the immediate post-war years due to this general demand for cars, the vehicle never achieved the iconic status that Chevrolet had envisioned for it. By the early 1950s, the fastback trend was already beginning to fade, and the Fleetline Aeros sedan's novelty had worn off. Chevrolet shifted its focus back to more conventional designs, which aligned better with the tastes of the American public. The Graham Page Hollywood, introduced in 1940, was a car that represented the last gasp of a once prominent automaker struggling to stay relevant in a rapidly changing industry. Positioned as a high-end luxury vehicle, the Hollywood was meant to be the flagship model that would help revive Graham Page, a company that had been well regarded in the 1920s and early 1930s for producing innovative and stylish automobiles. Unfortunately, by the time the Hollywood was introduced, the company was in serious financial trouble, and the car's design, though ambitious, failed to resonate with buyers. Instead of bringing Graham Page back from the brink, the Hollywood's lackluster reception only hastened the company's decline. At first glance, the Hollywood had the makings of a striking luxury car. The vehicle was based on the groundbreaking shark nose design that Graham Page had pioneered in the late 1930s, which featured a bold, aggressive front end with a prominent grille that jutted forward like the nose of an airplane. This design had been intended to give the car a futuristic, aerodynamic appearance, capitalizing on the Art Deco fascination with streamlining and speed. However, by the time the Hollywood debuted in 1940, the shark nose design had already fallen out of favor with the public, and what had once seemed bold and modern now appeared awkward and ungainly. One of the Hollywood's most glaring design issues was its unbalanced proportions. The car had an unusually long front end, which created an impression of bulk and weight that contrasted sharply with its relatively small, pinched cabin. This gave the car a top-heavy, lopsided appearance that many found unattractive. While the long hood was meant to evoke power and prestige, the small passenger compartment made the car look cramped and uncomfortable, a serious drawback for a vehicle marketed as a luxury model. Buyers looking for a high-end car expected both elegance and comfort, and the Hollywood's odd proportions failed to deliver on either front. Adding to its design woes, the Hollywood was introduced at a time when the market for luxury cars was shrinking. In the years leading up to World War II, economic conditions were tough, and buyers were gravitating toward more affordable, practical vehicles. This shift in consumer priorities put additional pressure on high-end automakers like Graham Page, who were already struggling to compete with larger, more financially stable manufacturers like Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. With its awkward design and premium price tag, the Hollywood was out of step with what buyers wanted in the early 1940s. In an era when sleek, practical sedans were becoming the norm, the Hollywood's eccentric styling and high cost made it a tough sell. Under the hood, the Hollywood was powered by a 6-cylinder or 8-cylinder engine, depending on the model, which provided decent but not exceptional performance for a car of its class. However, the vehicle's mechanical attributes were overshadowed by its design flaws and the public's lukewarm reaction to its appearance. While the car boasted some advanced features for the time, such as independent front suspension and a semi-automatic transmission, these innovations weren't enough to overcome its poor reception in terms of style and practicality. The timing of the Hollywood's release also played a significant role in its failure. By the time it hit the market, Graham Page was already in a precarious financial position. The Great Depression had taken a toll on the company, and its sales had been steadily declining throughout the 1930s. The shark nose design that had been introduced in 1938 had been a last-ditch effort to revive the brand's fortunes, but it had proven to be a commercial failure. The Hollywood, based on this same design language, was seen as a continuation of a strategy that had already been rejected by the market. In addition to its financial struggles, Graham Page faced stiff competition from more established luxury brands. Cadillac, Packard, and Lincoln were all producing vehicles that not only had more refined designs, but also offered superior engineering and build quality. The Hollywood, despite its luxury aspirations, couldn't match the prestige or reputation of these competitors. Buyers who could afford a high-end car in 1940 were more likely to choose a Cadillac or Packard, both of which offered better styling, performance, and brand recognition. The Hollywood's failure to gain traction in the market was a critical blow to Graham Page, which had been hoping the model would revitalize its fortunes. Instead, sales of the Hollywood were disappointing, and production was limited. By 1941, with the United States on the brink of entering World War II, the entire automotive industry was shifting focus to wartime production, and Graham Page found itself unable to compete. The Hudson Commodore, introduced in the late 1940s, was a prime example of a car that offered impressive technological advancements, but ultimately failed to capture the hearts of style-conscious buyers. As one of the largest cars of its era, the Commodore represented Hudson Motor Car Company's attempt to compete with the heavyweight luxury brands like Cadillac and Lincoln. While it featured some forward-thinking innovations and delivered a solid driving experience for its time, the Commodore's bulky and boxy design made it an unpopular choice for those who valued aesthetics and maneuverability. Its imposing size, while appealing to some, proved impractical for many, and its ungainly appearance led to its lukewarm reception in an era when sleek, streamlined designs were starting to define automotive fashion. Hudson was known for producing cars with a strong reputation for durability and performance, and the Commodore was no exception in this regard. The car featured the company's innovative step-down design, introduced in 1948, which lowered the car's center of gravity by integrating the floor pan within the chassis rather than on top of it. This unique engineering choice gave the Commodore better stability and handling than many of its contemporaries, especially for a vehicle of its size. It was one of the first American cars to incorporate this design element, which made it safer and more responsive on the road. A significant selling point for families and those looking for a sturdy, reliable automobile. However, despite these mechanical advances, the Commodore's aesthetics left much to be desired. The car's massive, boxy frame made it look heavy and cumbersome, an impression that was only amplified by its enormous fenders, flat grille, and squared-off roofline. In an era when cars were beginning to embrace sleeker, more aerodynamic shapes, the Commodore's upright and square design seemed out of touch. It was as if the car had been designed with sheer size in mind, without much consideration for elegance or grace. The large bulbous front end, combined with its long and flat rear, gave it a somewhat lopsided appearance, lacking the balanced proportions seen in other high-end cars of the late 1940s and early 1950s. At over 200 inches in length, the Hudson Commodore was one of the longest cars on the road at the time, but its size worked against it in terms of practicality. While the spacious interior was a boon for passengers, offering plenty of legroom and comfort, the car's bulk made it difficult to navigate through tight urban streets or parking spaces. The Commodore was also heavier than most of its competitors, which contributed to its sluggish acceleration and made it feel ponderous behind the wheel. Although it performed decently in terms of power, with engine options that included an inline-6 and an inline-8, the car's sheer weight and large frame prevented it from feeling nimble or responsive. The Commodore's size and weight also had a noticeable impact on fuel efficiency, a growing concern for buyers even in the post-war era. As smaller, more efficient cars began to enter the market, the Commodore's gas-guzzling tendencies became a drawback. Its large, heavy frame required a robust engine to move it, but this came at the expense of fuel economy, making the Commodore an impractical choice for those seeking efficiency. In addition to its unwieldy size, the Commodore's styling was another source of criticism. The car's design seemed to focus on functionality over form, which made it appear utilitarian rather than luxurious. Its tall, upright windshield, oversized chrome accents, and squared-off rear end gave it a bulky industrial look that lacked the flowing lines and curved shapes that were becoming more popular in the late 1940s and early 1950s. Competing brands were already moving toward designs that incorporated more curves, lower profiles, and a sense of motion even when standing still. But the Commodore's conservative, boxy shape made it seem stuck in the past. While the Commodore did have some standout features that were ahead of its time, such as its innovative step-down chassis and roomy interior, these advantages were overshadowed by its outdated appearance and impractical size. Buyers who were drawn to the car for its performance were often turned off by its cumbersome handling and boxy exterior, while those seeking a stylish, modern car were more likely to gravitate towards sleeker alternatives from other manufacturers. By the mid-1950s, Hudson was struggling to keep pace with the rapidly evolving automotive landscape. The company's focus on producing large, sturdy vehicles like the Commodore had served it well in the earlier part of the decade. But as consumer tastes shifted towards smaller, more stylish cars, Hudson's fortunes began to decline. The Commodore, with its bulky design and lack of aesthetic appeal, symbolized this misalignment with market trends. The Fraser Manhattan, introduced in the late 1940s as a premium offering from the partnership between Joseph Fraser and Henry J. Kaiser, was envisioned as a luxury vehicle that would cater to the growing demand for high-end automobiles in the post-war boom. However, despite its ambition, the Manhattan's design failed to resonate with consumers. It represented a conservative approach to styling that ultimately made it look outdated, even as it rolled off the production line. In a market brimming with excitement for new designs and technological advancements, the Manhattan struggled to make a lasting impression. One of the main problems with the Fraser Manhattan was its lack of visual flair. The car's exterior was marked by a bland and somewhat uninspired design that did little to differentiate it from other vehicles on the road. While many automakers in the post-war period were experimenting with bold, streamlined shapes and futuristic aesthetics, the Manhattan adhered to a more traditional, boxy form. Its long, flat hood and squared-off roofline made it look more like a carryover from the pre-war era than a cutting-edge luxury car. In contrast to the sleek and modern offerings from competitors like Cadillac and Lincoln, the Manhattan appeared conservative, bordering on dull. Despite these shortcomings, the Manhattan was not without its merits. The car boasted a spacious and comfortable interior, which was one of its few redeeming qualities. Fraser aimed to create a vehicle that would appeal to families and individuals seeking both comfort and status, and in this regard, the Manhattan delivered. The car featured plush seating, ample legroom, and a well-appointed dashboard, making it a pleasant place to spend time, especially on long trips. It was marketed as a vehicle that could combine the utility of a family sedan with the elegance of a luxury car. However, these strengths were not enough to compensate for its exterior design flaws. Mechanically, the Fraser Manhattan was competent, but it failed to stand out in terms of performance. Under the hood, the car was powered by a 226 cubic inch inline-six engine that produced around 115 horsepower. While this was adequate for the time, it was far from remarkable, especially when compared to the more powerful V8 engines that were becoming increasingly common in luxury vehicles. The Manhattan's acceleration and top speed were modest, and while it offered a smooth and quiet ride, it lacked the dynamic driving experience that many buyers expected from a premium car. This contributed to its overall perception as a mediocre performer in a market where consumers were looking for excitement and innovation. One area where Fraser attempted to differentiate the Manhattan was through its marketing. The company positioned the car as a luxury vehicle for discerning buyers who wanted something refined yet understated. However, this approach didn't resonate with a post-war audience that was eager for flashier, more adventurous designs. The car's muted styling failed to capture the aspirational spirit of the era, and as a result, it didn't stand out in a crowded marketplace. Buyers who could afford a luxury car during this period were often looking for something that made a bold statement, both in terms of performance and appearance. Unfortunately, the Fraser Manhattan didn't deliver on either front. In addition to its design and performance shortcomings, the Manhattan was also hindered by the challenges facing Fraser's parent company, Kaiser Fraser. The company had entered the automotive market with high hopes after World War II, banking on the idea that America's burgeoning middle class would be eager for new cars after years of wartime production shortages. While the company initially saw some success, it quickly became clear that it was struggling to compete with the more established automakers like Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. These companies had deeper pockets, more extensive dealer networks, and greater economies of scale, all of which made it difficult for Kaiser Fraser to sustain its early momentum. The Fraser Manhattan, despite its ambitions, became a victim of these larger market dynamics. While it offered a decent blend of comfort and practicality, its lack of visual appeal and underwhelming performance made it difficult to justify its positioning as a luxury vehicle. As more advanced and better designed cars entered the market, the Manhattan's appeal continued to fade. Sales figures reflected this disconnect, as the car never achieved the success that Fraser had hoped for. By the early 1950s, as the company's financial difficulties mounted, the Fraser nameplate was phased out entirely, marking the end of an era. The Kaiser Special was an ambitious attempt by Kaiser Motors to capture a share of the booming post-war automotive market, but its unconventional design and lack of appeal ultimately led to its failure. Produced from 1947 to 1954, the Special was intended to be an affordable, innovative family car that would stand out from its competition. However, despite the company's forward-thinking approach, the car's unusual aesthetics and performance shortcomings made it a tough sell for American consumers. The most striking feature of the Kaiser Special was its unconventional design. In an era when automakers were embracing sleek, modern lines and chrome accents, the Special stood out for all the wrong reasons. The car's bulbous, rounded body gave it an ungainly appearance, especially when compared to the more streamlined designs offered by competitors like Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. The front end was particularly divisive, with a narrow, almost pinched grille that looked out of place against the wide, curvaceous fenders. This imbalance in proportions created a visual disconnect that left many potential buyers feeling uncertain about the car's styling. Kaiser Motors had hoped that the Special's design would appeal to post-war buyers who were looking for something new and innovative. But this wasn't the case. While the company's engineers sought to incorporate some aerodynamic elements into the car's design, the execution fell flat. The rounded roofline and oversized body panels didn't give the car the sleek, futuristic look that Kaiser was aiming for. Instead, the Special appeared bulky and awkward, with little to distinguish it from the more traditionally styled cars on the market. In addition to its peculiar appearance, the Kaiser Special also suffered from a lack of distinctive features. While some competing models were equipped with advanced technology and luxury options, the Special was relatively basic. Its interior, while spacious and comfortable, lacked the sophistication and attention to detail that many buyers expected from a car in its price range. The dashboard layout was functional but uninspired, and the overall build quality was average at best. Without the unique selling points that could have set it apart from the competition, the Special struggled to capture the attention of discerning buyers. Under the hood, the Kaiser Special was equipped with a 6-cylinder engine that produced around 100 horsepower. While this was sufficient for basic transportation, it paled in comparison to the more powerful V8 engines that were becoming increasingly common in American cars at the time. The Special's performance was adequate for city driving, but it lacked the power and acceleration needed for highway travel. This was a significant drawback, especially as post-war consumers were becoming more mobile and were looking for cars that could handle longer distances and higher speeds with ease. The Special's lack of power made it feel underwhelming on the road, further limiting its appeal. Despite its design and performance flaws, the Kaiser Special wasn't entirely without merit. One of the car's standout features was its safety innovations. Kaiser Motors was ahead of its time in emphasizing crash protection and passenger safety, and the Special included features like padded dashboards and reinforced door panels, which were rare in the late 1940s and early 1950s. While these safety advancements were notable, they weren't enough to make up for the car's aesthetic and mechanical shortcomings. Most buyers in the post-war era prioritized style and performance over safety, meaning that the Special's innovations went largely unappreciated. Kaiser Motors was a relatively small player in the automotive industry, and this limited its ability to compete with the major manufacturers. The company had entered the market with high hopes after World War II, believing that there was an opportunity to carve out a niche in the expanding middle-class market. However, as the 1950s progressed, it became clear that Kaiser lacked the resources and dealer network to go head-to-head with the big three automakers. The company's financial struggles were compounded by the underwhelming reception of the Kaiser Special and other models, which failed to generate the sales volume needed to sustain the business. The Kaiser Special's fate was sealed by its inability to resonate with the mass market. While the company continued to produce cars throughout the early 1950s, it became increasingly clear that Kaiser was fighting an uphill battle. By the mid-1950s, the company had scaled back its automotive operations and shifted focus to other ventures, including the production of affordable housing materials. The Special, along with other Kaiser models, quickly faded into obscurity as the brand ceased production and disappeared from the automotive landscape. The Nash 600, introduced in the late 1940s, represented a significant technological leap in automotive engineering with its innovative unibody construction. At a time when most cars relied on body-on-frame designs, the Nash 600's unibody frame helped make the car lighter, more rigid, and fuel-efficient, qualities that should have set it apart from its competitors. However, despite these engineering advancements, the car's uninspiring and conservative design left much to be desired in the eyes of the car-buying public. One of the most noticeable features of the Nash 600 was its boxy and utilitarian appearance. Unlike many of the sleek, streamlined models that dominated the post-war market, the Nash 600 had an overly plain and almost refrigerator-like look. Its high, flat sides, narrow body, and tall roofline gave the car a slab-sided appearance that lacked the curves and flair buyers were craving. While Nash engineers may have been focused on practicality and aerodynamics, the car's design came across as stark and industrial, almost as if it had been designed by engineers with efficiency in mind, rather than stylists aiming to appeal to consumers. The front end of the Nash 600 was particularly conservative. While many other cars of the late 1940s and early 1950s featured ornate grilles, chrome accents, and bold headlights, the Nash 600's front fascia was simple and devoid of any real excitement. The grille was narrow and vertical, flanked by small, round headlights that did little to give the car any real personality. Overall, the 600's face looked more like that of a utility vehicle than a passenger car, especially compared to the more glamorous designs coming out of Detroit at the time. Despite its dull design, the Nash 600 had some notable innovations that helped it stand out, at least on the engineering front. The car's unibody construction made it one of the lightest full-sized vehicles of its era, allowing it to achieve impressive fuel economy for the time. In fact, the 600 in its name referred to its ability to travel up to 600 miles on a single tank of gas, a remarkable feat during a period when fuel efficiency was not a major selling point for most consumers. Additionally, the unibody design improved handling and reduced the car's overall weight, making it more maneuverable than its heavier body-on-frame competitors. While the Nash 600's engineering was ahead of its time, its aesthetics felt stuck in the past. The car's overall shape was conservative to the point of being unremarkable. With its narrow body and tall roofline, the car had an almost upright, stodgy stance that did little to excite potential buyers. The car's lack of visual flair likely contributed to its struggles in a market where post-war consumers were eager for bold new designs that reflected the optimism and prosperity of the era. Buyers wanted cars that looked modern and stylish, not vehicles that reminded them of the pre-war era's more conservative design sensibilities. The interior of the Nash 600 was functional, but far from luxurious. While the car offered ample space for passengers, the cabin was Spartan and devoid of the premium materials and finishes that were becoming increasingly common in the post-war market. Nash's focus on efficiency and practicality meant that the 600 was more utilitarian than upscale. While this may have appealed to buyers looking for a reliable, no-nonsense vehicle, it didn't capture the imagination of those who were drawn to the flashier and more opulent models offered by other manufacturers. In addition to its plain design, the Nash 600 also suffered from a lack of brand cachet. Nash, while a respected name in the industry, was not known for producing exciting or fashionable cars. The 600 in particular reinforced the perception that Nash vehicles were solid but uninspiring. As other automakers introduced more daring and dynamic designs, Nash's more conservative approach left the 600 looking dated and out of touch. Despite its engineering accomplishments, the 600 failed to stand out in a market increasingly dominated by style-conscious buyers. To be fair, the Nash 600 did find some success among practical-minded consumers. Its unibody construction, lightweight design, and fuel efficiency made it an attractive option for those looking for a reliable and economical car. However, in an era where cars were becoming symbols of personal identity and social status, The 600's uninspired looks made it difficult for the car to truly compete. Nash may have been ahead of the curve in terms of engineering, but its failure to match those innovations with a visually appealing design limited the 600's potential. Ultimately, the Nash 600 is remembered more for its technical achievements than its appearance. The unibody construction that Nash pioneered would go on to become the standard in the automotive industry, proving that the company was thinking ahead in terms of engineering. The Packard Clipper, introduced in the late 1940s, was intended to revitalize Packard's reputation as a leading luxury automaker and modernize its lineup. However, the Clipper's design failed to live up to expectations and highlighted the company's struggles to adapt to changing automotive trends. Although it was meant to usher in a new era for Packard, the Clipper's awkward proportions and heavy appearance made it a less than stellar representation of the brand's illustrious heritage. At first glance, the Packard Clipper's design is characterized by its bloated rear end and unremarkable front end. The rear of the car, with its overly rounded and somewhat cumbersome shape, seemed out of proportion with the rest of the vehicle. This design choice contributed to a rear that looked overly large and bulky, which was a stark contrast to the more streamlined and elegant designs favored by competitors of the time. The car's rear end lacked the sophistication and grace that Packard had previously been known for, making it appear more cumbersome than cutting edge. The front end of the Clipper was similarly disappointing. It featured a grille and headlights that were neither particularly striking nor innovative. The grille with its vertical bars was conventional and did not offer any distinctive styling cues that would set it apart from other cars on the market. The headlights, while functional, were integrated into the design in a way that did little to enhance the car's overall appearance. The Clipper's front end, in particular, did not capture the elegance or boldness that Packard had been associated with in its earlier models. Instead, it came across as lackluster and uninspired. In terms of performance, the Packard Clipper was adequate but not exceptional. The car was equipped with a range of engine options, including a V8 that provided decent power for the time. However, the Clipper's performance did not stand out in a crowded market of increasingly powerful and refined vehicles. While it was reliable and offered a smooth ride, it lacked the dynamic driving experience and advanced features that were becoming more common in luxury cars of the era. Packard had once been a symbol of luxury and innovation in the automotive industry, known for its high-quality craftsmanship and cutting-edge technology. The Clipper, however, marked a departure from this legacy. The car's design and performance failed to capture the essence of what made Packard special. The company's previous models had set a high bar for elegance and sophistication, and the Clipper's more mundane design suggested that Packard was struggling to maintain its position as a leader in the luxury market. The Clipper's design was also emblematic of a larger problem facing Packard during this period, a failure to keep up with evolving automotive trends. The late 1940s and early 1950s saw a shift towards more streamlined and aerodynamically efficient designs, and Packard's attempt to modernize with the Clipper fell short. While competitors were introducing sleek, forward-looking designs that reflected the optimism of the post-war era, the Clipper's more conservative and cumbersome appearance seemed out of touch with contemporary tastes. Moreover, the Packard Clipper's lack of innovation in terms of features and technology further highlighted its shortcomings. The car did not offer any groundbreaking advancements or standout features that would justify its position in the luxury segment. This failure to innovate contributed to a perception that Packard was lagging behind other automakers that were pushing the envelope in terms of design and technology. The Packard Clipper's commercial performance reflected its mixed reception. While it attracted some buyers due to its established brand name and reputation for quality, it did not achieve the level of success that Packard had hoped for. The Clipper's lackluster design and failure to live up to the company's previous standards made it clear that Packard was facing significant challenges in maintaining its market position. By the mid-1950s, Packard's fortunes continued to decline, and the company struggled to compete with larger, more innovative automakers. In retrospect, the Packard Clipper serves as a reminder of the difficulties faced by established brands in adapting to changing market conditions. The Clipper's awkward proportions and conservative design were indicative of Packard's broader struggle to redefine itself in an era of rapid automotive evolution. While the Clipper may not have been a commercial success, it remains a notable chapter in Packard's history, illustrating the challenges of balancing tradition with innovation in a competitive industry. Ultimately, the Packard Clipper represents a moment when a once great automaker struggled to recapture its former glory. The early Studebaker Champion models of the 1940s were emblematic of Studebaker's efforts to modernize and innovate, but they faced significant challenges in gaining widespread appeal. Introduced in the post-war period, the Champion was intended to be a forward-looking vehicle that would attract buyers with its reliability and performance. However, its design and overall presentation fell short of capturing the public's imagination. One of the most notable aspects of the early Champion models was their overly rounded, plain design. Unlike some of the more stylish and streamlined cars emerging from other manufacturers during the same period, the Champion's design was decidedly conservative. The car's rounded fenders and lack of sharp lines gave it a somewhat old-fashioned appearance, which contrasted sharply with the more modern and dynamic designs that were gaining popularity. While the rounded shape was intended to be sleek and aerodynamic, it ended up looking rather frumpy and uninspired. The Champion's front end was particularly unremarkable. With its narrow grille and modest headlamps, the car did not have the visual impact of its competitors. The grille lacked the boldness and distinctive features that many buyers were looking for, and the overall front design was more functional than stylish. This lack of flair made the Champion appear rather plain and uninteresting compared to the more flamboyant designs of the era. Despite its design shortcomings, the Studebaker Champion did have some strengths, particularly in terms of reliability and performance. The car was known for its durability and solid construction, which contributed to its reputation as a dependable vehicle. Under the hood, the Champion was equipped with a straightforward inline-six engine that provided adequate power and smooth operation. The car's suspension and handling were also well regarded, offering a comfortable and stable ride. However, even with these positive attributes, the Champion's overall appeal was hindered by its design. In a decade when automotive styling was rapidly evolving, the Champion's outdated appearance made it less attractive to buyers who were looking for something more modern and eye-catching. The car's frumpy look did not help it stand out in a crowded market where aesthetics were becoming increasingly important. Moreover, Studebaker's attempts to innovate with the Champion were overshadowed by the brand's broader struggles during this period. While the company had a reputation for engineering excellence and a history of producing innovative vehicles, the early Champion models did not capitalize on these strengths. Instead, the car's design issues and conservative styling contributed to a perception that Studebaker was lagging behind its competitors. The early Studebaker Champion's reception reflected the difficulties faced by the brand in maintaining its competitive edge. Although the Champion was a reliable and well-built car, its outdated design made it less desirable to consumers who were seeking more modern and stylish options. As a result, the Champion did not achieve the level of success that Studebaker had hoped for. In retrospect, the early Studebaker Champion serves as an example of how a car's design can significantly impact its market success. Despite its reliability and performance, the Champion's plain and old-fashioned appearance was a major drawback in a rapidly changing automotive landscape. The car's struggles highlight the importance of balancing innovation with aesthetic appeal and demonstrate the challenges faced by automakers in keeping up with evolving consumer preferences. The Champion's design issues and limited success ultimately underscored the broader challenges faced by Studebaker during this period. While the company had a history of producing innovative and high-quality vehicles, the early Champion's failure to capture the public's imagination was a setback in its efforts to modernize and compete with other manufacturers. The car remains a noteworthy chapter in Studebaker's history, reflecting both the company's strengths and its struggles during a transformative era in the automotive industry. And there you have it. These 10 cars from the 1940s may have been bold attempts at innovation, but they missed the mark with their awkward designs and poor execution. While the 40s had some gems, these models prove that not every car was a winner. Which one do you think is the worst? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more car history and epic automotive fails.